Right, hi, welcome back. Okay, paint today, going to paint the swing arm. I've got to clean it first thoroughly, get all that greasy pour mitts off it that I did in the last video with the swing arm bearing change, and thank you for all your cool feedback on that. Very, very kind of you. We enjoyed making that video, it was great fun, and we're hoping that that video will become one of the long-term archive videos that will get 100,000 hits in years to come, one of our evergreen ones like the fork seals and all that other stuff that have been still getting hits today after years ago. So thank you for all your kind comments on that. Today it's time for paint. Now, with all the greasy pour mitts on it, this, although it was rubbed down already and it was all partly bare metal, there's lots and lots of a grainy finish on this, the cast metal finish, so that grease will be right there in there. I'm going to use paint thinners to get that out, to literally dissolve the grease, and clean paper, not rags which just spread the stuff around. I'm going to use lots and lots of paper and get all this as clean as I physically can, chemically. Then mask up the bearings, mount it on a jig, which I'm going to make up a little jig to hold the thing so I can turn it over, and then it's time to try some paint. Now I've got an etch primer. The etch primer I think is the right move. I don't always use it. The tough paint itself is designed to go over bare metal. You can put it over bare metal provided that metal is grainy enough. If it's etched enough, if with sanding it down, if it's got enough of a key on it. As you saw on the wheels, I painted them over the bare alloy and they have absolutely come out a treat. You'll see those in future. They're at home at the moment, drying next to a warm radiator, so curing them properly before we start muscling tyres on them. With this, as you can see, a lot of it, the centre section is cast, so you get that cast grainy finish, so that would not be a problem to paint bare metal with the tough black. But the sides here, these originally were sheet metal, and as they're sheet metal they're very smooth, and although I've keyed them with the fleece, I still want to get an etch primer on there to make sure that that's going to get the most chipping and scratching and knocking. But the great thing is, one of you guys asked, why not just get it chem cleaned and powder coated? You know, yes, you can do that, it's a great way to do it, and it is reliable. It's a simple pass it out the road, get it done. But I want to do it myself, purely because I just want to make life a little bit more interesting. I want to do my own project, paint my own swing arm, and prove that actually you can do it. The wheels have come out beautifully, as you saw, and this will come out exactly the same. Just have to take the right procedures. The great thing with paint over powder coat, as I've said many times already regarding the wheels, is you can repair it. You can sand it back, you can spot paint it back in, and it looks great. You can't do that with powder coat. Once it's scratched, which it's inevitably going to get at some point, you're stuck with it as it is. Yeah, you can paint it, but it's not really the right way, is it? It's never going to look like it did when it was new. Whereas with paint, you can make it look absolutely brand new again. So there's for and against in both camps. I don't think either is the right or wrong way. This is just the way I've chosen to do it. And partly, like I said, because it's my project and I really want to make as much of it as I can in my own work, if that's, you know, by my own hands, as it were. So there we go. Today, let's get this chemically cleaned. Got to get the garage warmed up. As you saw, it's only 9.5 degrees. It's about 12 now. I want it 20 degrees in here before I start blowing paint. So it gives me time to mask it up, to clean it up, to get it mounted on a jig before I start painting. So I'm going to shut up, get on with it. Welcome back. Right, the right hand chain adjuster bolt is jammed in, just corroded, and I'm not snapping it off. It's kind of moving, but the trick is with these, move it backwards and forwards gently, a little tiny bit at a time. Sadly, I've got to put WD-40 on it, which is what I'm trying to clean off. Is it one step forward, 2 steps back? And I'm going to use a little bit of heat as well, just to kind of expand the alloy thread away from the steel. So gently. Right, half an hour into this now. This is the kind of thing that slows down any job. Just have to put up with it. That bolt on the inside, that's the one that came out okay. The wet point is where I put WD-40 on it to kind of get it moving, and that was what was inside. And you can see the fact that it's dry and rusty. Moisture's just got in and corroded the end of the bolt. Now you can easily wind it out, big spanner on it, but you'll snap it off because if it is corroded, it's weakened, and I'm going to replace them with new ones, but I don't want a broken off stump in there, so it's worth taking the time. Like I said, half an hour into it. Now what I've done is use the drill with a bit driver and a socket on the end, just to reverse in and out to try and work the lubricant in as much as I can to try and start dissolving that. What I'm going to do now is a little bit of copper slip on the thread and just work it in and out, hoping that what it will do is it will deposit a lump of, well, a ring of copper slip around the inside of the thread, and as you draw it out, it then coats the dry rusted thread that's inside there and hopefully gets it out. It's worth taking the time, because honestly, how long does it take to get a broken bolt out? And then if you do cross thread it or strip the thread off the swing arm, then there's even more grief because you have to put a helicoil kit in it, and it's not worth it. Helicoils are obviously no problem, I've got one to do on the bike already, but if I can get this out, it's worth the time. So, and again, now I'm doing this, it's all over the bloody work I've just cleaned. But there we go. I'll bring you back down to this. I'm just going to put some of this on the thread, see if we can work it in and out. This feels promising. This feels good. The last, there we go. The last little bit of the thread. Where are we? There we are. The last little bit of the thread's just chewed up due to the amount of corrosion probably pushing it. So that's not too bad. I'll run a tap through the swing arm thread itself, clean it up, and then a new bolt. Right. Now, having worked with opposing chemicals, kerosene-based WD-40, and now I want this completely grease-free. I've got to practically start again. I'm covered in WD-40 anyway, but I'm really pleased that that bolt is out. Able to deal with that properly now. Just got to clean this up again. It's kind of starting again now. Learned a few years ago from watching Milo Garage. Old Milo used to say, make sure that when you're going to do any paint operation, whatever it might be, that you can make sure to get all the way around it without any difficulty. You can get round it physically if you need to. You're not going to trip over anything on the floor that's in the way. So prepare your painting area and rehearse your painting action, so you can get all round it. It looks silly standing there doing this, but if you find that there you physically can't get to it, then you know to do something about that before you start painting, so that when you start throwing paint, you haven't got any issues, you haven't got to stop, you haven't got to spoil anything, you haven't got to start all over again simply because you didn't stand it properly on a stand, you know. So there we are. Thank you to Milo Garage videos, serving the biker world even today, and they will forever. God bless Milo. Right, one more wipe over. Let's get some paint out. Right, okay, by way of explanation, etch primer first and then tough paint over the top. That's going to be the combination of products. Etch primer, because there's this smooth bare metal here. Although it's keyed with, you know, aggregates, it still needs to have an etch on it, I believe. This sand cast area, that will also help with that. A couple of warnings on the can. 21 degrees target temperature, is 19, so I'm as close as I'm going to get today. It's only 5 outside, and that little heat is working against the weather. And then tough paint after. Matching products, matching brands and matching chemicals is a recipe for success. Usually I find when you start mixing different brands of paints, then you don't know what you're putting over what, so you could end up with a reaction which buggers your job. So that, first of all, 2 coats of this, 15 minutes in between each. If that doesn't react, then 2 coats of that, and if that doesn't react, then 2 more wet coats, and that's the job done. If it does react at any point, I've got to end X, stop, stick it over there on the side and wait until probably 2 days, until it's fully cured, all of it, and then I can sand it back and spot clean it and get all the chemicals that are underneath causing the problem out, and then repaint. But hopefully that won't be necessary. Hopefully I can paint all of that today. 2.5 hours prep. I've done all I can to get that as prepared as possible. So let's shut up talking, get on with it. Etch primer first. Wish me luck. Right, that's the primer on. Primer, very unique. I've never used that before, that product. It's got a very unique smell. Kind of smells a bit like ether. Very, very spirit-based smell. Perhaps that's the acid in it or something, I don't know, but it is etched beautifully. The finish, I'm going to give you a close-up look before I put the black on. The finish is stunning. I'm really, really impressed. More than I thought I would be. On the outside of the swing arm, where the smooth part of the metal is, I honestly believed I would have to sand that back and it would show all the sanding marks, but none of it. It actually is quite a high build primer as well, and being an etch primer, it chemically bites into the metal and gets a good bond. And also the original factory finish, there was a little bit of a hope that it didn't lift up the factory finish. Some paints are not compatible with others, and goodness knows what that grey stuff was that was originally on the frame, but no, it hasn't reacted at all. And probably 2 thick coats there, and it's dried out beautifully. No runs, no nothing. I went nice and heavy, overlapping coats, and that to me is absolutely superb. I'm really happy with that result. Now it's time for the black, but before I do it, I'm going to give you a close-up look at this and see what you can achieve, or what it achieves, this etch primer, just with 2 thick coats before you start putting the colour on. So give you a quick look, then I'll put you back up there and get back into the black, and we'll start to see if we can make this look nice. Right, now that looks stunning. That's 3 wet coats I set out to put 4 coats on, so I'm going to do one more light coat and hopefully it will float out and I'll get that final finish that I'm looking for. So wish me luck. So far so good. So far it is perfect. I'm hoping for no runs, no sags or curtains, but I do want to get enough on there for it to be thick enough to survive down the years and not to just chip straight off. So far, perfect. Wish me luck. One more last coat. This is where it can all go wrong. Oh yeah. Right, there we go, 4 wet coats now. That's absolutely superb. It's floated out beautifully, no runs, no sags, no drips, nothing, and it is not grainy either. When you do rattle can paint, you know yourself, I mean, this is a specific kind of rattle can paint. It's a lot thicker than the usual stuff. So you have to put it on thick enough, otherwise you get a grainy finish. But if you put it on too thick, because it's heavy, it sags and runs. So it's quite a toss-up. The line between not enough and too much is quite thin. I think I've got it bang on, because it is floated out and there are no runs, so hopefully it will stay that way. I'm going to chop it over this way in a minute, just to let everything settle, check it over, then I've got to find out a way, somehow, of picking it up. The rear bar's okay, I kind of need 3 hands, and then I'm going to take it over there to a space I've prepared where it can dry off for 48 hours, and then after that I'll take it back to the house where it can sit in a warm room for the next 2 weeks and cure off like the wheels. But you'll see all that when the time comes. That's enough of that. Wish me luck. I've got to get this over there now and then have a clear up. Fingers crossed. Right, done, safe at last. Okay, now bloom. If you've ever heard of bloom, it's something paint guys talk about. It's when something's too cold, or the piece of metal there is too cold and the surface of the metal attracts condensation from the atmosphere. So if I let all the cold air in here now from outside and don't leave the heater on for the next 4 or 5 hours to keep the temperature the same, then that metal surface will get super cold at probably about 5 degrees outside, and then the condensation forms over the surface of the paint. Now that condensation is microscopic and it forms a cloudy finish. Now if any of you have done paint and it's gone cloudy afterwards, that's known as bloom, and I've been beset by it for years and years, and I learned the only way to deal with it is warm up the workspace that you're working in and keep it warm while it dries. It can be a bit expensive, leave the heater on for 7-8 hours, but I don't really care. I don't want that trashed. At all costs, it's important that that stays exactly as it is now, because I am super chuffed with that finish. That is superb, and when that dries satin, it's going to look even better. It's certainly going to match the wheels. So leave it as it is. If you're going to do paintwork yourself, leave the heater on for at least 4 or 5 hours until that paint has got its proper cured finish and it's not going to get moisture on it that gets into the paint itself, especially if you're using clear coat. It's most important with clear coat. Clear coat will go cloudy if it's too cold. This finish probably won't, but I ain't taking any risks because I'm so happy with that. That took so long to get right. Anyway, that's enough of that. Thank you for watching. Take it easy, ride safe. Join us tomorrow for a little Simple Skills tool making.
the next one.